Ian Garry's like a fucking Starbucks worker, right? When you go to Starbucks at the crack of dawn to get your coffee and you are just dead to rights, exhausted, no caffeine yet, probably very irritated or irritable, and you got the fucking Starbucks worker. Oi, what you like? That fucking high pitched, it's just like, what is going on, Fite Feeders? Welcome back to Fite Feed. So, you guys have probably seen, obviously, if you unless you live under a rock or you've become an MMA fan in the last like 2 days. We just had some drama, Mr. Ian Garry. Oh, I go out there. He got a big win over Bilal and goes into the back, and him and Khamzat get into a little shuffle, if you know what I'm saying. And I've seen so many different creators and just even fans online commenting about it. A lot of people like shitting on Khamzat, like, oh, like, quit being a little bitch, blah, blah, blah. And you know what? I think that there's a lot of differing opinions here. And obviously these guys are fighters, they're alpha males. They're going to feel, not only, walking in the room, I think that they're going to kind of walk in with a certain gusto, like, I got to be the big shot around here, right? But what I will say, and I agree that it is a bit, I don't think that Ian Garry, like, in my heart of hearts, I don't necessarily think that Ian Garry was trying to piss Khamzat off by any stretch of the imagination, but he could be playing mental warfare. I don't think so, because even when you consider what Ian Garry said after it happened, he basically shut down completely this idea of even fighting Khamzat, right? And he made these excuses about his metabolism for middleweight, which I find hilarious, because when Sean Strickland was yapping his mouth off, Ian Garry's like, I'm going to go up to middleweight and punch his mouth off, right? Like, he didn't have the whole, like, take of, I need to gain weight and shit first, which tells me I think he knows where he stands in a fight against Khamzat. But regardless, Khamzat reacting the way he did, obviously, a little bit psycho there. The thing is that I don't think a lot of people are considering is that Ian Garry, he kind of walks around with this like player one energy, right? He walks into the room thinking like, just the world, it's like it's his world and you're just living in it, boo-boo. Like, he just walks around and he just does his thing, and he thinks that the whole world is magnetized to him. And although Khamzat says some shit, like, obviously he's going to smash everybody, but I don't see Khamzat walk into a room and act that way. Ian Garry does. And that's just a difference of personalities, right? And so I think Khamzat in that moment, the way I can explain this, the best way I can explain it from my own perspective is, I would say as a person, I am much more like a Khamzat, right? Like, I think when I walk into a room, I am just usually very respectful of other people, kind, don't try to do too much, right? Like, obviously I'm never going to be like quiet in the corner, because that's just not who I am, but I would be someone who's talkative, but not in a way of like the way Ian Garry comes in, right? He's just a little Ian Garry's like it's like Ian Garry's like a fucking Starbucks worker, right? When you go to Starbucks at the crack of dawn to get your coffee and you are just dead to rights, exhausted, no caffeine yet, probably very irritated or irritable, and you got the fucking Starbucks worker. Oi, what you like? With that fucking high pitched, it's just like, that's how Ian Garry comes off. And it's like, sometimes, you understand that they're trying to be nice, and you can see it from that perspective, but you're also like, dude, come the fuck on. Now, does that mean you shove the Starbucks worker? Absolutely not. But we're talking about professional fighters here. So the other thing I was going to say is, and I think it's funny, because when I was a kid playing football with some friends, we were 14 or 15, I think 15, playing tackle football at the park or whatever. And one of my friends, he's just one of those guys where, not Ian Garry like by any stretch, but he would get, sometimes just be a little bit of he would be putting himself in a position where you might piss somebody off, right? And I don't even remember what happened specifically, but we were all, it's a bunch of fucking teenagers, angsty teens playing football, testosterone, just all the things that come with a fucking 15-year-old. And I'm not a person who gets in physical altercations. The only time I've ever been in physical altercations is because I'm pushed to that point. But my friend, we were playing, and he just did some shit. I don't even remember specifically what he did, but he had this fucking smug smile on his face. And I just remember, like, he was like right next to me, and he had this fucking look, and he's looking right at me. And I literally just bitch slapped him as hard as I could. Like, I smacked his ass. And like, looking back, if he would have punched me in my mouth, I would have deserved it. And if we would have gotten a fight for that, I would have deserved it. But looking back, dude, this is how, like, you guys would tell I'm not a fucking fighter. I still look back and think back, like, damn, that was shitty of me to do. Like, I shouldn't have done that. But in the moment, it's that anger, like, I just saw red and it just happened, right? Like, I literally didn't have control over my hand at that point, as weird as that might sound. But I also want you to consider this. I was 15, right? So I literally was a child, brain not fully developed. So we're not giving Khamzat an excuse for that, but because he's a 30-year-old man, like you should be able to control this. But he is a cage fighter, so there's a different vibe there, right? And he's an actual killer, this guy. And where I'm headed with all this is, despite what you think, like, even if you think either side, right? If you think that Ian Garry was provoking in some way, or even if you think that Ian Garry wasn't, I think you have to give credit to the fact that Khamzat is just in that space and he's seeing this dude that's just, it doesn't mesh that well. And you know what? Jake Gerber said this. I saw him tweet about this, and he made a video on this as well. But in his tweet, he had said, it's very clear, like, their energies just don't mesh. It's a fight game. Shit happens. Like, he just shoved him. Big fucking deal. But at the same time, like, I totally agree with that statement, because it's like Ian Garry has an energy that, when you consider what Darren Till said too, I thought that was so funny, dude. Darren Till usually pisses me off, like, with his whole take with, like, he's talking about Rodriguez, and he's like, Israel, the best strikers, Israel's Adesanya, myself. Like, dude, you are not the best striker in the UFC. Like, calm down. But his whole take of, like, I've fought demons, like, in my room trying to force myself to like Ian Garry, and I just can't. Like, I feel that, because I think Ian does have an energy that a lot of people would cling to and like. He has fans, but I think a lot of people would just be rubbed the wrong way or just annoyed by it, right? And so where I'm at with it is, it's like, dude, I can understand why it happened, regardless of how you feel, regardless of the barriers of language. I think it's just a moment in time where it's like Khamzat felt a certain way of, like, this guy's just walking in here thinking he's the fucking shit, and I'm going to show him. Now, do I agree with Khamzat doing that? No, but I can see where he's coming from with that. And I had to give you guys a little bit of a personal story there, because it reminded me of that, where it's just like, in the moment, some shit goes down. And even though you're, my friend, whatever happened, I think in the case of myself, like, I don't even remember specifically, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But I do remember whatever happened with my friend. It was a very pointed situation. Like, he was kind of looking for some sort of reaction. I just don't think he expected that one. And after I slapped him, he just kind of, like, sat there and stared at me and was like, look like Tucker Carlson. He's like, but I was like, I think I apologized immediately too, because I felt bad. But regardless, I had to compare those stories, because I feel like in that moment, that's how I feel Khamzat probably felt. It's just like something happened. And dude, it was so funny to watch, because, like, Ian says that initial thing, and then Khamzat says something, and then, like, Ian, like, looks away, but then he looks back at Khamzat and goes, what's wrong? Like, I don't even know if, like, I have to go rewatch. I don't think I even noticed, like, a look on Khamzat's face to think that he's mad. But, like, Ian just, like, looks back at him and, like, realizes there's something wrong and gets shoved. But yeah, I think that this is really just to the point of just an energy thing. And I think it's just in that moment, Ian did something that made him feel some sort of disrespect, and he had to show him who's boss by shoving him a little bit. And then, he called him white boy, which is hilarious. We're all white here. But I would say, like, look, they are both white, but as a white man myself, I have the ability to say this because I'm white. I do think that if you put Ian Garry and Khamzat in the wilderness with no sunblock and sunlight, Ian Garry is going to have a harder time there. He's a different type of white, right? Like, me, I'm pretty pasty myself. And I think, you can look at emojis, right? I wouldn't say, I wouldn't say I'm like Ian Garry pasty, but I've got, like, the problem I have is, like, I'm a little bit like Dana White, not as Dana White like, but got that, I get the pink pigment going. You know what I'm saying? We eat a little spicy food, which I love to do, get a little pink going there. So I think Khamzat's well within his rights to call him white boy, because he is more white than Khamzat, but Khamzat is still white himself. He's from the fucking Caucasus region. So funny shit all around, though. And you know what? It's more shit than talking about rankings and stuff. So I appreciate it. So I wanted to break it down myself, give it a little short breakdown for you guys. Nothing we need to go too advanced on. Would love to hear what you guys thought about that situation. Make sure to comment below. And also let me know your thoughts. Do you think Ian Garry's like a Starbucks employee who's just selling some coffee 6 a.m.? I feel like that's a good comparison to that energy that you might just be like, bro, too much. Step off. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you guys in the next one.